Welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this podcast, you will discover interviews with procurement and technical experts, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. These experts will help you to develop and grow, accelerate your career, improve your business, save money, and buy smart. Now introducing The Real Life Buyer, Dave Barr.
Hello, and welcome to The Real Life Buyer. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Dave Coombs. Dave's initial career journey spans from 1969 to 2007, where Dave held a number of management positions. Of particular note to myself was that Dave was a former expert in supply chain, logistics, and manufacturing, serving with AT&T from 1984 until 1992, and is also certified by APIX at the fellow level. So for those curious, APIX is currently known as the Association of Supply Chain Management. But Dave's true calling, however, is music. And Dave has dedicated over 41 years as a music business owner, photographer, and author. In this business, Coombs Music, an independent record company. So today, I'm fascinated to learn how supply chain and logistics felt to Dave during his time at AT&T, and how he successfully shifted his career to his passion to make a music business so very successful. So without any further delay, I welcome Dave onto the podcast. Hi, Dave.
Hey, hello, Dave. We're not going to forget each other's name, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Really, I've been looking forward to this since we first talked, because you and I have so much in common that we're going to really enjoy speaking with each other today.
I certainly hope so. It's quite scary, some of the similarities, even in birthday almost.
Yeah. Mine is day after tomorrow. In 2 days, I'm going to be 75, believe it or not. I can't believe it, but biologically, that's true.
Congratulations, I can say.
Thank you.
I happen to be on Friday as my big day.
Oh.
Oh, dear me. Right. So let's begin with AT&T and how supply chain and logistics was viewed and valued at that time to perhaps how it could be now. What's your thoughts on that, Dave?
Well, most of my career was in technology. I started out as a computer programmer, but then moved over into a new division of Western Electric at the time, which was materials management. I think we built 7 of these really huge, not in today's terms, they weren't really huge, but back then they were really huge warehouses to store and distribute all the manufacturing parts to supply the factories that were running and manufacturing the telephony for the United States, basically. And so I moved into that organization when it was very first formed. That was in probably 1974, 75, somewhere around that time frame. And it was brand new technology, and things came along that the first thing was like just in time. We all got used to this term just in time, and then we learned about all the constraints of manufacturing and keeping up with inventory, and then I learned about this MRP, manufacturing requirements planning, and the APIX organization, which was the American Production Inventory Control Society. And being a technical person myself, I'm a very analytical person. When I was a shop manager, and I had about 1,000 people working for me, putting things together and shipping big bays out the door, and 3 shifts. It was a big job, but a huge part of the job was keeping up with your inventory, and you couldn't ship one big multi-$1,000 piece of equipment because you were short one little piece of electronics that cost 20 cents. You just didn't.
Yeah.
It was those kind of things that you dealt with every day. And so that was my life. And I really dove into it. I mean, I really did. I studied it. I wanted to be as good as I could be as a manufacturing manager. And I studied myself and my immediate boss and several of my peers. We get together at night and study all these modules under APIX for the certification. There was inventory planning, master scheduling, and production planning, all these modules under APIX for your test. You had to take I think it was 5 tests that you had to take to get certified, and how well you scored depending upon whether you were at the fellow level or not. Well, I studied really, really hard, and so did a lot of my fellow workers. And I passed at the fellow level, believe it or not. And so I was right proud of that. But that job really launched me into a different career path. I was working out of a factory, one of the plants. And then suddenly I got elevated over into an organization whose responsibility it was to implement brand new systems in the factories to track all the inventory and the planning and the scheduling and get it all tied together. And that was a big deal. I mean, these factories were operating on the just in case philosophy, on inventory. If I need 5, well, let's just order 10 just to be sure, So
yeah, absolutely.
It was interesting. But implementing these systems around the country involved me traveling to a lot of places. We had, I don't remember, I need to look it up, see how many factories we had, but there were probably 20 some around the country. One of the places that I had to travel to was Nashville, Tennessee. We had a plant in an old service center there that manufactured toroidal inductors. They were a device, fascinating to see them made, but they were in a critical part of the electronics that we used in Western Electric. Well, this plant was implementing this new software system, MRP system, and my job was to help them implement it. So I was traveling on Monday to Nashville, and I'd work all week, come home on Friday, and then on cutover weekend, I worked straight through the weekend and whatever. But while I was in Nashville, I was able to record a demo recording of a song that I had written a few years earlier in 1981. And the song that in 81 did not have a name. And in 1983, it got its name when I played it at the christening of our godchild, Rachel. Her name happened to be Rachel. I named it after her. I played it and then said, from now on, this song will be called Rachel's Song in her honor. And then that was in 83. In 86 was the year I was working in Nashville. We were cutting over the big MRP system. And my wife says, well, while you're there working, why don't you get a demo recording made of this song you've written, Rachel's Song? Okay. So I found a studio and a musician named Gary Prim to record a demo of Rachel's Song. Now, in my book, I go in great detail describing the recording process. Now, for those of you interested in recording studios and how that feels and sounds and so forth, you can read those details in my book, because I tried really hard to take you in the studio with me. I wanted you to feel what I felt and hear what I heard and that kind of thing. It's really fascinating process, but it was a life-changing process for me, because what I heard created in that studio by this fabulous musician named Gary Prim changed my life forever, because it really touched me deeply. And everybody I played it for, all the guys on my team putting in the MRP system, I played it for all of them. They loved it. I played it for the plant manager. Anybody I could corner long enough to listen to it, I played it for them. And so they loved it. So knowing that song not only pleased me, but impacted me, but everybody else that heard it, I realized that this song could be something really special in my life and could lead possibly to a future career in music. I didn't know how or what or anything at that point, but I just had that feeling. You know how when you find something or when you discover something, and you think, that's it. I've got it. Yes, I got it. So that was in 1986. Got it recorded, got it played on the radio after I got back home. Ended up writing some more songs, and in 1988 produced a whole album of Rachel's Song. All of the songs that I'd written at that time are on this album, Rachel's Song. And so I began to wonder, how do I market my music? I got it played on radio stations. It wasn't easy, and it took quite a while to get it on all 400 radio stations in the United States that are easy listening stations, which we used to have and don't have anymore. But I got it played, and then I started getting fan mail. People that heard my music started writing me letters, and they would say how much my music had touched their life. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. Well, sales took off. I actually after 1988 doing this album, Rachel's Song, 1989, I did a Christmas album. And then I followed that with another album of original music called Beautiful Thoughts. And for every year for the next 15 years, I went back to the studio and recorded another album with Gary Prim, the same artist that did Rachel's Song. So I began building a catalog of music, and I developed a way of selling my music, not through the big box stores. They wouldn't have anything to do with me. So I said, I'll just invent my own way of selling it. I went to gift shops, and I recruited gift shops to play and sell my music. When you went into the gift shop, you hear all this beautiful music. And if they liked it, they went over to the counter and said, "What's that you're playing?" "Oh, here it is in a basket. Right, here's a CD. Just take it right home with you." So it was an impulse buy in gift shops. Well, I ended up getting over 1,000 gift shops to play and sell my music all over the whole country. And I'm telling you, I was selling tapes and CDs, cassette tapes and CDs by the pallet load. I mean, 5,000 would fit on a pallet. And sometimes I would order 2 pallets of CDs at a time. So that was a lot of music.
Yeah.
Well, by 1992, my income from my music business had overtaken my income from my AT&T. And I had a very cordial departure, had lunch with my boss and said, "Bill, I'm sorry, but I cannot afford to work here anymore."
Wow.
I said, "Here's my letter of resignation," which he was not surprised. He was a good friend as well. And he knew what I was doing in the evenings and weekends. And he said, "Well, Dave, I kind of envy you. I wish I could do the same, but I can't." But it turned out we were going through a big slump at the time. And he said, "You just saved a young man's his job." He said, "I was about to have to lay so-and-so off because of the cutback. And he was didn't have much service, and I did. I was going to be able to stay, and he was going to have to go." He said, "Because you left, and you just saved this young man's job." And I said, "Well, then it was meant to be. I'm I'm even more happy about what I just did." So that was in 1992. Never looked back. It was just a wonderful experience of creating music, getting it played, and then riding the wave of the evolution of music. Your audience will remember, those that are old enough, cassette tapes and CDs, and now the internet came around about the mid 1990s, and then suddenly we had downloads of music available, and then Napster came along and stole all our music, gave it away for free. That was terrible. And so they finally got their comeuppance with the law. They got shut down on the stealing of the music, but the damage had been done. The value of music, I think, took almost a permanent hit in terms of its perceived value by the public. And it's been a long road back ever since. But thank goodness Apple Music came along with iTunes, and then came out with being able to download for 99 cents a song. And so that started us back into some kind of a business model that had some revenue in it instead of giving it away for free. And then so the downloads, and then a little bit later, we had streaming. You had Pandora came along and said, "Well, you can create a radio station or a Pandora station for Dave Combs' music. Play one of Dave's music. Next thing will be one that sounds like Dave's. It won't be him necessarily, but they really came up with a very clever. I wish I had thought of it, but it was a very clever algorithm for picking music and they did it mathematically. They had they called it the DNA of music. I think they had over 200 attributes of a song. So by the time you got all those attributes, what key was it in, what tempo was it, what instruments were in it, all these attributes of a song, they put it in there. So a song that sounded like Rachel's song would be next up on the chart for Pandora. Well, that was great because nobody ever heard of Dave Combs, but there was maybe a famous musician that was worldwide known, had a song like mine. I would get played right next to that person. So it would be drawn in. And so I kind of, as we say, I rode in on the coattails of some people. So that was Pandora. And then, of course, Spotify comes along, iHeartRadio, all of these streaming media, which we're still dealing with today. So I have enjoyed this whole journey from cassette tapes and CDs all the way today through downloads and streaming. And I really think it's kind of ironic that I have the occupation that you and I cut our teeth on of MRP and material planning and logistics and Six Sigma, all the things we call it today, the supply chain management. That was what it was working. And had I not been working in that, I probably would never have been in Nashville, Tennessee to record Rachel's song. So it's ironic that I have that to thank for the rest of my career and in music. So it's quite a journey.
It certainly is. It's fascinating to hear you go through that. And to hear the passion that you had for when you were doing the supply chain job and how that passion still transferred across. You're saying in the same breath almost such very positive and wonderful things about all the things you've done in your life. And that's sort of lovely to hear. It does seem rather amazing that you've been at the right place at the right time with the right people. So something perhaps on MRP worked there, shall we say?
Yeah.
Beautiful scheduling. Well done on that job.
Thank you. Somebody else had a really good just-in-time system, didn't they?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's peel back some of those amazing things that have occurred to you. So you're into this enormous organization. You're able to travel around the country. Was it that time, out of curiosity, were you traveling internationally as well as within the US, or was it purely a US based?
It was purely US based. All of our factories at the time were located in the continental United States. And so it was, I know we had a big plant in Denver, Colorado, up in Massachusetts, and all in New Jersey, and all around Chicago, and Indianapolis had a great big plant. And
were other parts made in the US as well?
Yes.
Or were you buying those internationally?
Most of them were made in the United States, and I loved it. Basically, it was one of the most fun jobs I ever had was in the manufacturing plant. I love making things. Now I love making music now, but back then I loved to see all these parts from the inventory come together, and I had 3 shifts of people soldering them on a circuit board and putting them in the rack and putting it all together, testing it all out. And then I had this wonderful lady she was in charge of shipping it out the door. So you'd see the parts come in and the final product come out the end of the other side of the shop. And I love that process of making something. And I long for the days when that would return to the United States, because I think we lost something critical when all of that manufacturing skill left and went to the overseas, and it went every direction, whether it was Mexico or Taiwan or China or wherever it is. It needs to come. A lot of that needs to come back home, I think, because that's a critical part of who we are as a country. I think we make things, and we don't, by and large, we don't have to depend on anybody else outside of our continental boundaries. Really, we have all the raw material and everything right here. And I think we got a little bit ahead of our skis, so to speak, when we started outsourcing all of this. And thank goodness a lot of that's coming back now. We see the perils of doing that, because then you're at the mercy of somebody else if you're not careful.
Yeah. So you had quite a transition in the respect that you've gone from being an employee, obviously a very senior employee, into a business owner. Just curious, from your insights now, what were the big differences that you really had to negotiate, shall we say, between the 2 different types of role? Well,
when you're an entrepreneur, you look around and you say, well, who's in charge of that? And you say, well, I guess it's me. And when you start out, at least when it's just you, and I did eventually, I had one employee full time for many years who was she was an office manager and helped me with answering the phone and keeping records and that kind of thing. But by and large, the running of your business is totally up to you. And then that involves every aspect of it. And that's really this, we study supply chain management today, but that really branches out. It's not just ordering a part and when it's going to get here. It's the planning and the people that it's going to be required to do all the aspects of it. So you have to realize that you're in charge of every aspect. The name of your podcast, The Real Life Buyer. Well, I had to buy everything that I was selling, basically. In my case, I had to figure out how do you buy CDs? How do you make an order and get a quality compact disc made? Well, back when I started, they were brand new. I mean, I almost couldn't get mine made because there was this young fella making CDs by the millions called Michael Jackson. He had this, I think it was Thriller was his album.
Yep.
He had bought up all the manufacturing of CDs in the whole world, basically. There weren't that many factories. Of course, he was selling his CD by the millions, but I did get mine made. But But there again, you have to figure out how do you negotiate the process of getting your product made. And then, you have to worry about packaging. You have to worry about how do I set up my shipping? Well, I had to get a contract with UPS at the time. Of course, today it's a lot different. You can do a lot of things electronically.
Yeah.
First of all, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have email. We did not have cell phones. So everything was either U.S. mail or by landline telephone. And so it was very basic, very basic.
Yeah.
But all those processes you look around and you say, well, I've got to keep my inventory. There's such things as keep paying taxes. You got to keep really good records for your taxes. At least once a year, or starting out, it was every quarter. I had to do an inventory so I could do my estimated tax payment. And then, annual inventory and making sure that everything was ordered properly, the quality was good. So there's not an aspect of business that you are not going to find out how to do or hire somebody to do when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think that's great that you've shown how relevant the skills that you learned in big business, in the corporate world, were so translatable into your own business. I guess the things that were kind of new to you as well was the sales aspect. There wasn't the social media then,
right,
as there is now. So how did you get really out there? Did you have to literally knock on doors, pound the streets, drive your car, make phone calls? What were the ways of selling your products then?
All of the above. You just about named them all. A lot of it was what we would call shoe leather marketing, where you're literally out there walking the streets. I was trying to find gift shops that would play and sell my music. Initially, I would go on weekends. My wife and I would go to a little tourist town, whether it was Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or Occoquan, Virginia, or different places, Blowing Rock, North Carolina. We would go into those little tourist towns, and this was really a lot of fun too, because these are great places to go anyway. But we would go in there, and I would literally walk into a gift shop, stop and listen, and see if they were playing music. If they were, then I would pursue it further to see what they were playing and talk to the manager, and then possibly leave them with a cassette or a CD of my music and say, well, play mine and see what you think. And, it was we call it over here, we call it the puppy dog sale. Here, take this little puppy dog. You don't have to keep it, but you keep it for a day or two, and nobody ever returns a little puppy dog, right? So I would leave a sample of my music, and most of the time I would get a phone call that said, hey, this is so-and-so shop. I'd like to send me so many cassette tapes and so many CDs, and we'll start off. And so that was the shoe leather part of it, physically doing it. But then I ran out of territory that I could physically get to within a reasonable amount of time. So I had to resort to the telephone, doing telephone calls. And then who do you call? And how do you find the proper gift shops to call? Well, I thought, I'll just try going to the Yellow Pages. And at the time we were living in the Maryland area, so we were close to Washington, D.C. I went to the Library of Congress in downtown Washington, D.C., into their phone book room. Your folks are going to laugh when I say this, but they had a room, a huge room, literally with every phone book in the country. It was racks and shelves of phone books, alphabetical by city and state. I'd go and I'd pull a phone book of a particular city I wanted to call. I would make a Xerox copy of the Yellow Pages of gift shops. It'd have A to Z, all of the gift shops in that little town or city. Take those copies home, start calling on the phone on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock when the gift shops opened up. I would start calling, and I would simply say, I can close my eyes and say it in my sleep. Do you sell any tapes of the music you play in your shop? And I would stop and wait for their answer. Well, they would either say, no, we don't play music. Well, thank you very much. Goodbye. 13-second phone call. Or they'd say, well, we play music, but no, we don't sell it. And then I would launch into a discussion with, well, do you ever have people ask about the music you're playing? And if they do, have you thought about possibly having it for sale? And some would and some would not. So if they had thought about it and would be open to the idea, I'd send them in the mail a sample package of some information. And rarely, just rarely, because this was brand new back then, rarely I'd find somebody, yeah, we play and we sell just a few CDs that we like. And I'd say, get them to agree to let me send them a free sample. And so I would have to make 30 phone calls to get one prospect package out of the deal. I got used to hearing no a lot. Now, that's another lesson for your entrepreneur audience out there. You have to get used to sometimes hearing people say, no, I'm not interested. And you almost have to have the mindset that instead of hearing no, you hear not yet.
Yes.
So anyway, so after 30 phone calls, I'd have one prospect. Did that all Saturday and Sunday till my voice gave out. And my phone bill came in a box. I mean, like the size of a shoebox. I had made so many phone calls in a month. Well, 1 in 30 is not a good hit rate. And here is where my analytical brain kicked in, and your analytical audience will appreciate this. I said, I know where I'm having success is in tourist towns like Gatlinburg and Blowing Rock and Occoquan. I'm calling the wrong places if I'm not in a tourist town. Atlanta, Georgia's got a lot of shops, but they're not the same mindset of a tourist town. So how do I find where the tourist towns are? I know where they are in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, and Maryland. But beyond that, I don't know. I've never been to Oregon's gift shops or California or Arkansas, all these places. So I said, I know I need to find them. So I said, well, surely somebody keeps a good record of it. You'd think that the chambers of commerce or the commerce departments would have records of, Tennessee's gift shop or tourist towns are blah, 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 blah. I called them. Nope. Nobody had any such record. They did not know that the today's term, you would call it, they didn't tag anything as a tourist town. That was not a data element for them. So I said, well, there's got to be a better way. And I said, I'm not giving up on this. And so I got to thinking, my left brain kicked in big time. And I said, okay, what is the characteristic of a tourist town? There's only 2 pieces of data you need to know. How many gift shops are in it? And what's the permanent population of a tourist town? How many permanent residents do you have there? Okay, so where do I get those 2 pieces of information? Number one, I found out I could purchase the mailing list of all the gift shops in the entire country. Now, today, you just go online and say, download it, bingo, you got it like that. Nope, internet had not been invented yet, so I had to buy a paper copy, printout, and it was that thick, about 4 inches thick, big, wide computer paper, single-spaced, 75,000 gift shops in the entire country, alphabetical, within town, within state. Huge printout. And that was great. So I went through that entire printout. It took me a long time, but I went through it. And for every town, I counted the number of gift shops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I created a spreadsheet, had the name of the town, state, and how many gift shops. I went through the whole printout. Now I needed the other piece of information. How many people permanently live there? Well, we have a thing called the census, the annual census that's every 10 years. So I said, okay, where do I get that data? Well, I went to the library. I worked right across the street at the time from the local library. If you ever want to know anything about anything, ask a librarian. If they don't know it, they know where to go get it. So I asked the librarian, where can I find the population of all these little towns I'm looking for? And she says, well, Dave, I've got just the thing for you. Go over here on this table, and I just happen to have it here with me.
Oh, my goodness.
It is a book. This thing weighs about 12 pounds. It's called the Rand McNally. This is 1990. This is the one I bought for that year I was doing this. Commercial Atlas and Marketing Guide. Well, guess what's inside here? I'll show you. First of all, it has, if I can get to a...
My goodness, it's enormous.
It's got maps, every state, detailed maps of every state in the union. But more important, back in the back, alphabetical order, by state, every census crossroad in the country and their population.
That's incredible.
So all I had to do, I wasn't going to go sit in the library and look all these up. I did purchase this book. I think this book cost me about $125 back in 1990. Which,
that's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, but was it ever worth it? Because then I had all the data that I needed to put in my spreadsheet. And then I created the very last column that says, all right, computer, you calculate the ratio of population per gift shop. Bingo, instantly it calculates that. Now, sort my spreadsheet by that ratio. I want the smallest numbers at the top so that in North Carolina, guess what town was the top of the list? Blowing Rock, North Carolina, because its population is probably, 1,500, 2,000 people, but it had 85 gift shops, so the ratio was really low.
Yeah, perfect.
So I did that. So all of a sudden now, I didn't care what state it was. I could go on my spreadsheet. I could go to the state of Alaska, which I'd never been to and still haven't been, but I'd love to. I could tell where are the tourist little towns in Alaska? Where are they in Oregon? Where are they in any state? I started, and on that printout, I had their phone number and the name and the business owner name. Started calling only the top of the list. Guess what? My hit rate went from 1 in 30 to 1 in 5 or 4 or 3. I mean, it was like almost every phone call. Well, it was just great. I mean, I would have over 100 packages ready to send out on a weekend after calling. I mean, I would call till my voice gave out. But my number of gift shops went from just a handful to over 1,000. I had gift shops in all 50 states, and I was shipping music by the pallet load. It was just unbelievable. And that's what enabled me in 1992 to walk in and meet with my boss and say, Bill, I'm sorry, I can't afford to work here anymore. It's been nice knowing you, and I'll you're still my friend, but I'm out of here.
Wow, that's an incredible story, and it just the fact that you had all that data, but it was so difficult to access. You had to physically go and search through page after page after page. Yes. So you say enter it onto a spreadsheet. Thank goodness there was a spreadsheet you could put these things onto, at least, which helped you do some crunching of the data. But the ingenuity you come up with is incredible in itself. I think, where you found the information, where you got that correlation between those two statistics that gave you the answer you needed. So I absolutely applaud you in that research that you did.
Well, thank you. That's a lot of what is one of the emphasis for writing my book was I wanted people to understand that, yes, my music is very important and touches people and whatever, but the story of my journey with my music as a business, not just to create music just to make money, but because it was a successful business and it did enable me to do it full time. Those stories are really what I wrote in the book. And so if you like that story and stories like that, you will enjoy reading my book because it's got, like, I counted them up, it's got 78 little short stories in there about things like what I just told you. And that journey is really what it's all about.
Yeah, it's an absolute masterclass in data analysis and the research, the effort, the work that's required, but the output. To go from that statistic of 1 in 30 to 1 in, say, 3, that is a tremendous success. Absolutely amazing. Wow, just quite staggered by that, to be honest. So
it staggered me too when I realized what I was able to do. I was excited. You can imagine how excited I am. You would have been excited too. I mean, it was just, wow, I've got what I need to do now. And then it's a matter of work. You've got to just do it. But using ingenuity and thinking outside the box and thinking surrogates for data. Sometimes if you cannot measure one thing, find something else that correlates with it and measure that. I'm kicking back to my math and statistics background, but that's really the principle that you're trying to do is you just find ways to move ahead and analyze what you are and keep good records of, that's why I knew I was keeping good records of who I called, what the response was. So I knew that what my hit rate was, and I kept good records of that. And record keeping and statistics and data and projections and looking at least trends, seeing what trends are around. Like, for example, CDs were not really prevalent until the late 80s. Cassette tapes were big. Well, I've got my sales chart that I don't have it with me right now, but I can tell you how many cassette tapes I've sold every year from the beginning, until I sold zero. I think it was in the year 1999 or 2000, somewhere around there. It was zero in cassette tapes. So the graph on that went like this, and it just went down to zero. But you overlay on top of that the graph of CD sales. They started about 1988, and then they just went up and up and up. But then they have also trailed down, and you've probably heard people talking about how they don't even make in the United States. There may be one brand of car that you can order that has a CD player in it, which really that's another whole sore subject for me. Is why would they eliminate a way of playing a physical piece of music in a car? It just it seemed like to me a slap in the face of the music people in the country. Not everybody is going to want to stick a memory stick like this in their car or hook up their phone and pay data rates to download some music. So it's anyhow. So the technology has changed, the physical product has changed, and now we're really kind of in a virtual digital world of music.
Right. So you're earning your money. Is it really through downloads now? You get royalty from downloads?
Well, it's mostly from streaming, believe it or not. Downloads have also declined. Because they were, when iTunes came around in, 2001, I believe is when iTunes came around, and downloads they didn't do streaming. You had to pay 99 cents to download a song, or so much for an album. And it wasn't until later that the streaming came along, and I think they worked it out to get so that they could get the folks paid for the streaming. How do you get paid for streaming? And that's another whole sore subject for me. If your audience I would indulge you for just a second. How many times do I have to have one of my songs streamed to make 1 penny of royalty?
Blimey, I would have no idea. Let's say 100.
No, that would be way too many. But I have to have it streamed 5 times.
5 times. But that's for 1 penny.
For 1 penny of royalty. And that's for a song that I've written. It's my intellectual property. The 5 times that people that are listening to it, they're listening to my music. Let's say it's a 3-minute song or a 4-minute song. That's 20 minutes of my music that somebody's listening to. I get 1 penny. And I don't know, and there's other revenues involved that are earned by other people, but I only get 1 penny. And that's true for not just me. It's not just me because I'm a small-time musician. Practically all musicians that are not super musicians that sell by the billions, it's tough to make a living. The term starving musician, it is almost can be a literal thing if you're not careful. So it's the pay scale or the remuneration or how we're compensated for our music is another discussion that I'm sure a lot of people still are active in and not happy with. And it's an uphill battle to try to see who's going to take what piece of the pie belongs to the creator of the music. Most of it doesn't go, it goes to somebody else.
So would you say the important thing for you now is how to get your message out, get that visibility of your music so people do then go and stream your songs, basically? Is that where it's changed? Your marketing's changed completely?
Yes. In fact, what our discussion today is exactly what I spend. I do 3 or 4 or 5 podcasts every day to people all around the world, telling my story and trying to inform people and help them to discover my music. And again, it's I've made a good living at it, and it's not something that I'm not doing this just for the money of it. I'm doing very well with my retirement and so forth over the years, but it's for the feeling that I have that my music, I know, touches and blesses people. And I want the message, as you said, I need to get the message out so that people will hopefully be curious enough to go and at least listen to some of my music in the right environment. And I think they will find that it touches them in ways that they need to be touched, whether it's in a healing fashion with reducing stress and strain and conflict in their life, or they just want to sit back and relax and enjoy the music. But it's there, and that's my mission, is to spread it around the world.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm very keen to hear stories of, things that for sure has been a result, a positive reaction to what you put out in the world. So have you got a particular story that you're really proud of and how it transformed someone's life?
Well, there's, in chapter 20, one of my book, there's 22 pages of these stories. And I'll give you a couple of them. One really short one, almost the first one I ever got was a letter from a note from a lady in Atlanta. She said, as this was around Christmas time, she says, I was stuck in traffic, Christmas jam traffic in Atlanta, not going anywhere. And your song, Rachel's song, came on the radio. And she said, it turned a terrible traffic jam into a memorable, pleasant experience. And that's all she said. And I tracked her down. In fact, last year I called her up and she's still around, and I thanked her for her note that she sent to me many, many years. That was almost 40 years ago. And so anyway, I thanked her. But another letter I got was from a young lady in New Jersey. She had just finished her training as an emergency medical technician, an EMT. And she and her husband were driving home that evening, and over on the sidewalk in their neighborhood, she saw an elderly man just collapse right on the sidewalk. Well, of course, being an EMT, a brand new EMT, they stopped the car, opened the door. She runs over to the older gentleman and to see if she can help him. And while she's there, she hears on the car radio music. And so she yells back to her husband, hey, turn that music up loud. Oh, he did. And so the music was playing, and she was there comforting the man. And I think a doctor in the neighborhood finally came and was assisting to him. And he was okay. Whether he was having a heart attack or a panic attack, I don't know. Or maybe it just passed out. But in any case, he had calmed down. By the time the music stopped playing, he had calmed down and was practically back to normal. Well, she was totally amazed. She got back in the car, and they didn't know what the song was. Got home, they called the radio station, and she says, what was that song that you were playing at 6:07 p.m. today? And the DJ says, oh, well, that was Rachel's song. And apparently he'd gotten phone calls about that music before. So he gave her my address and told her how to get a hold of me. She did, and wrote me this wonderful story. So there was another case where she didn't have to do that, but she went to a lot of trouble to track me down and to thank me for my music. And that's just one, or those are just two, of over 50,000 letters that I've gotten over the years. I mean, the mail would come in boxes. And I wrote an article in 1994 in Guidepost magazine. This little magazine has a subscription rate of about 2 or 3 million people. And in 1994, the article that I wrote in this magazine is called Two-Part Harmony. And it's the story that I've been telling you about Rachel's song and how I wrote it and how it got its name and recorded and how I quit my job. Well, apparently people were really inspired by my story. Now, they had not even heard the song yet. They just read the story. So when this little magazine hit the street, and in the back of the magazine, they had put my address and phone number. My phone started ringing. I mean to tell you, it never stopped. You could put your hand on the receiver and pick it up. Somebody was there. It was that constant. And people wanted to know, here's my credit card. Send me a CD of Rachel's song or a tape. In 2 weeks' time, I had received over 10,000 letters and calls from people about that article in Guideposts. My mailman, 2 days later, here comes my mailman down the driveway. He's dragging this canvas bag. He can't even pick it up. He rings the doorbell and he says, Dave, what have you done? And I said, well, I just wrote a little article in Guideposts. And he said, yeah, apparently. He said, this thing is full of letters to you addressed to Dave Combs and my address. And my wife and I had to stay up that night it took us till 6 o'clock in the morning, just opening the letters that were in that bag. I mean, it was that many. And every one of them had a check for $10 for a cassette or $14 for a CD. And a lot of them had a note saying how much they enjoyed the story and blah, blah, blah. It was so the publicity from my song and how it touched people, even just the story about the song apparently touches people as well. But I'm telling you, those stories are really the reason I ended up writing my book. Was I said, okay, I have got to get this story out there for people to read. It's just too good for me to just keep to myself.
Yeah. And it's quite a skill, a new skill, again, to write a book. How did you find that experience?
Well, that was, I've always enjoyed writing. English was one of my favorite subjects in high school. I had wonderful English teachers, and I've always enjoyed reading. And I like to write a little bit, but I was not a professional writer, that's for sure. But fortunately, I had been doing some public speaking about these stories. I would give a program to a Kiwanis club or a Rotary club or something and play music and tell stories. So I like telling my stories, as you can tell from my talking today. I love telling stories. And so really, I wanted my book to be conversational. Like when you read it, I want you to almost hear my voice reading it to you. And so it's getting those stories down on paper was something that I decided to do at the encouragement of my wife, Linda, back when the pandemic began. Here we are at home like the rest of the world, can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, you're kind of isolated. What are you going to do? Well, she says, well, you've got all these stories. We've talked about writing a book. Let's get on with it. Let's do it. So we did. I started down that road, and I had the good fortune as part of that process to meet my now good friend, Jack Canfield. Jack is, as you know, the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series of books. And he is a wonderful mentor, a very excellent teacher. He started his life out as a teacher, and he's still a wonderful teacher. But I met Jack, and I was privileged to spend about 3 days with him at a retreat. And during those 3 days, I got to know him. He got to know me. I told him about my stories and the draft of my book, and he loved the book and the book idea, and he loved Rachel's song. He absolutely loved Rachel's song. So he was so encouraging, and when I finished my book, I asked him if he would write the foreword to my book, and he agreed and did. So the foreword to my book is by Jack Canfield, and I'm really proud of that. And if you ever listen to this, Jack, thank you very much.
Wow, that's a lovely story in itself there. So to be clear, the book is called Touched by the Music, How the Story and Music of Rachel's Song Can Change Your Life. And that was released in October last year, October 21?
Yes, that's correct.
Fantastic. On that subject then, how can people hear more about your story? Where do they go to? What social media channels? What website? What's the best way to find out more about you?
Well, I would start by all they have to really remember is my last name, Combs, C-O-M-B-S, and combsmusic.com is my website. And when you go to my website, there are links to all my social media at the bottom of the page. But when on the left of my landing page, when you get to my website, is the picture of my book, just like here for those of you seeing the podcast. On the left is the book, and on the right side of the website page is a picture of my CD. And right below each of them are links that if you click there, it'll take you to Amazon.com, where you can either buy the book as a paperback or a Kindle ebook or an Audible book. If you subscribe to Audible, you can get to hear the recording of me reading the book to you and get my East Tennessee accent, and I'll read it to you all day long here. About 8 hours it takes to read the book. And so you can get that on Amazon. Or on the right-hand side, underneath the CD, is a link to take you to Amazon, and you can either buy a CD, you can download the music, or you can stream the music if you're an Amazon Music subscriber. And one of the best things is in the middle of the page is a link that says Play Rachel's Song. And when you click that, you will be able to play the actual recording of Rachel's song, the original one that was recorded in 1986 in the studio with Gary Prim. Has not been remixed. It has not been altered in any way. It's that original recording. And when you listen to it, you're listening to this same recording I listened to for the very first time in 1986. And so I hope that everybody will at least go and listen to the music and be blessed by it and touched by it. And then up at the top of the page, there are links where you can go and explore more about me and Gary Prim and listen to the other podcasts and articles I've written. In fact, I have a reprint of the Guidepost article. There's a reprint of it on my website as well. So combsmusic.com is where you need to go.
Brilliant. I'll add those links also on my website just to help people as well.
Good.
One last thing then, as we chatted before, I mentioned to you that my wife is a pianist. And she's actually just recorded and submitted a video for her grade 8 on the piano. See a piano behind you. So for those listeners who love their music, but are interested to take it further, perhaps even as a business proposition. What key bits of advice would you share with those people today?
Well, I think the first step is what your wife has done. You need to get a recording made of your music. Now, if you're a good performer yourself, then you can do that yourself. Or in my case, I was a composer. Yes, I can play the music, but what I play is not exactly the same as a professional musician in the studio. But there are studios all over the world, and there are wonderful musicians all over the world who, if you have written a song, you can find a musician that can take your creation and make it sound like $1 million. It will just blow you away what somebody else that's really a professional can do with your music. And then from there, I think it's up to, I hesitate, it's not up to fate, but it is really up to who you expose the music to. And a lot of times it's something that you cannot force. Like I think a saying I have always is, you can't push a noodle. You always have to find a way to lead and explore and hope that if you do and take enough action and move ahead enough, you will find the right avenue that will be the one for you to pursue your music, whether it's you yourself or through another musician, or some people are fortunate to be a songwriter and have a really big name person that records their music, and it's very successful. So there's all kinds of avenues to take with your music. And in my case, I also have, as I've discussed with you earlier, printed sheet music of all of my original songs and all my hymns. I have music that a piano player can buy the sheet music and play it exactly as it's recorded on the album. It's a transcription. So that's another avenue of creating music. If you're a gifted composer and arranger of music, then play it, and you can get your arrangements transcribed and printed, and you can put it up on, for example, I think it's Sheet Music Plus, or I forget the new name of the place, but online you can put your music up there, and if people like your arrangement, they can buy it, and you get so many proceeds from that. So there are lots of avenues that you can pursue with your music. But the main thing is you got to create it in the first place, and then take it from there to the next level, whatever that is, through you recording it or getting someone to record it, get it transcribed, get it performed, playing out on as many venues as possible. If you're literally a performer, you can find venues for you to perform your music. If you're just a songwriter, composer, you can find other people that will do the performing and hopefully take your music to the next level. So it's I bought a book a long time ago called The Businesses, plural, of Music. It's a great big book. It's kind of a handbook of all the stuff about intellectual property and copyrights and all that stuff. But it is the correct title, The Businesses, plural, of Music. It is a lot of businesses. I'm a member of the Board of Advisors of the School of Music at Appalachian State University. Well, there are lots of ways that students, when they go in as a music major, they have a lot of avenues they can pursue. They can pursue as a performer of an instrument. They can pursue as an educator, how to teach music. They can pursue as how do you do in the music business? What the art and business of selling music through music stores. And then there's the business of recording music. So you have a music technology, and there's lots of avenues that you can go. It's not a simple, I'm a music person. Well, that could mean a lot of things. But I would just be encouraging that you don't ever let anybody steal your dream, and keep pursuing and taking action and moving forward with your gifts and your talents.
I think that's a great note to finish on. I'd like to thank you very much for that. I think there's a key message as well behind this is your persistence to make things happen. And you have to apply some ingenuity to decide what's the best way about going and doing things. It's just not a case of spending money. It's thinking things through, analyzing, and as you say, pushing your dream forward. So it's been an absolutely fascinating story that you've got to share there, Dave. I'm very grateful for you taking the time to sharing that with my listeners today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it, and it's given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. If you are a purchasing or a supply chain professional, business owner or director, come and join my Facebook group, the Purchasing and Supply Chain Community Hub, a safe place to engage with like-minded, friendly people. See you soon. Bye.